And just things just don't add up here. And I'll tell you something. Some things don't add up in the Jacob Blake case either. We remember the Jacob Blake case. We remember him being shot 8 times in the back. I did not defend Jacob Blake for not abiding by what law enforcement were trying to do. You know, Jacob Blake has his 3 kids in the back seat, and he's not complying with police. He's a dumbass. Well, did he deserve to get shot 8 times in the back? I don't know. If he had a weapon on him, that's different. But he was walking away from police, so certainly it raises questions. Now we're learning from the attorney who's representing that police officer who shot Jacob Blake in the back. He told CNN that they arrived on the scene August 23rd. Rustin Shesky, by the way, is the officer we're talking about here in question, who shot Jacob Blake in the back 8 times. His attorney is saying in response to a call from a woman who said Blake was at her home and shouldn't be there, he heard a woman say, "He's got my kid. He's got my keys." Shesky's attorney said that he saw Blake put a child in the SUV as he arrived, but he didn't know that 2 other children were also in the back seat. He said Shesky told investigators he opened fire because Blake held a knife in his hand and twisted his body toward the officer, and that he didn't stop until he determined Blake no longer posed an imminent threat. Matthews said if Shesky had allowed Blake to leave and something happened to the child, the question would have been, why didn't you do something? And as Corf says, you know, cell phone video captured by a bystander posted online shows Shesky and another officer follow Blake with their guns drawn. So here's my question. If you believe this man is a threat to you, why would you be following him as he's walking away from you? Does that make any sense? Yes, I understand he had 3 kids in the back of his car. So you think the best thing to do in that situation is fire 8 bullets into the car? What if one of those bullets ricochets and kills one of the kids? Then what would we be talking about? I'm sorry, but I'm just not buying it. Am I defending Blake? Absolutely not. He sounded like a pretty bad guy who's done some horrible things in his life. But the question is, was the shooting justified? Same thing with Breonna Taylor. You know, we had somebody calling it, do you want to believe thugs or do you want to believe police officers? Jacob Blake could have been the worst human being on the planet. It still doesn't necessarily mean that that justifies an officer-involved shooting. All that matters is the evidence that took place at that moment. And what we know based on the video is this. And here's what we don't know. We don't know if Jacob Blake was carrying a weapon or a knife at the time he was shot. We just don't know. That's information we need to know. It's vital information, right? Just like we need to know in the Breonna Taylor case. Did Walker shoot that officer? We just don't know that. In fact, there's conflicting stuff. There's conflicting stuff in this case. Listen, you guys saw the Jacob Blake video as I did, right? Here's what I saw. I saw Jacob Blake clearly not complying with police. That is important. That's number one. He gets into a scuffle with police. It's all in the video. But here's the key part about this that you have to take in mind, is that Jacob Blake was walking away from police officers. He was not walking towards police officers with a weapon. We don't know whether he had a weapon on him or not. What we do know is that Blake was trying to get back into his car. Why was he trying to get back into his car? Did he have a weapon on him when this officer shot him in the back 8 times? It certainly looks bad. And I know what people are going to say, right? Oh, Blake, he was a child molester. He was a rapist. Doesn't mean anything. All that matters is what happens in that moment. Does it justify the police officer's action of shooting him in the back 8 times? That's all that matters here. Now, you have this officer who said he was twisting towards the officer. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. We all saw the video. Jacob Blake in no way, shape, or form in that moment looked like he was moving towards the officer in any way. In fact, it was the opposite. He was walking away from the officers. So, what is the only scenario here that you can believe that this officer felt like his life was in jeopardy? Well, there's a couple different scenarios here, but it makes it really difficult when this guy's walking away from the officers. Did he have a weapon on him? And if he did, like the officer is claiming, then why was he 2 feet away from him following him? Does that make any sense? Forget about police training for a second. If you see somebody with a knife and you have a gun on you, and this person is walking away from you, would you follow this person under any circumstance? The answer is no. That's not what police are supposed to do. And I'm assuming that Jacob Blake had a knife on him. We don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just saying for argument's sake, is that what police are trained to do? You have a guy who just got into a scuffle with you. You have a police officer who's claiming that Jacob Blake had a knife on. So why would you be 2 feet away from him? Proper police training would tell you that you need to be a little more distanced than that. That is a very dangerous situation that police officer put himself into. Yes, I understand. Blake put himself in that situation as well. I get it. Clearly, this officer knows that there's at least one child in the back of the car. He said he didn't know there were 3. He knew there were 1. 1 or 3. You spray 8 bullets in there? Can somebody lead me to believe that that officer thought that he was in harm's way? That he thought his life was in jeopardy? Why didn't the other officers feel that way? That's another question I would ask. What I'm trying to say is I think this officer's in a lot of trouble. Jacob Blake is lucky to be alive. He's obviously a fool because anybody who doesn't comply with police while your 3 kids are in your backseat is a complete moron. But that being said, does a moron deserve to be shot in the back 8 times? I would say it depends on the evidence. If Jacob Blake was walking towards officers with a knife, he deserved to be shot 8 times. Did he deserve to be shot in the back 8 times in the back as he was walking away from police, knife in hand or not? I would say the answer is no. And now this officer's attorney is saying, well, he was spiraling. He was moving his body towards the officer. No, he wasn't. I saw the video. He was doing the opposite. So that's a red flag, if you ask me. When you have an attorney that is lying for his client, that to me, that's a red flag. They're coming up with excuses. This is horrible. We have video from 2 different angles that shows the shooting. And again, my co-host JD likes to bring up, the past of somebody, but I think he agreed with me today. The past of somebody, their criminal record in the past has absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing, to do whether an officer-involved shooting is justified or not. It is a way to vilify the individual. It's called character assassination, and it gets me really angry. We had a caller last segment who called Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend a bunch of thugs. Quote, that is an extremely ignorant thing to say. It's just a very dumb thing to say. Number to call, 702-257-5396. Again, if you want to be a part of the conversation, 257-5396. I do believe the majority of police officers are good cops. I do believe that. But just because I believe the majority of cops are good police, does that mean we should believe all of them? Of course not. The evidence should always dictate whether an officer is telling the truth or an officer is lying. It's very, very simple. Yeah, I think most police officers are heroes. But these people that call in and these people in society that want to call Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend thugs are disgusting. You have an innocent 27-year-old woman who lost her life. You want to call her a thug? You know who I think are real thugs? Police officers that lie. Police officers that have itchy trigger fingers. I don't think that's the majority of cops, but they are out there. Officer Chauvin, who put his knee over George Floyd for 8 minutes, he's a thug. People who think because they're police officers, the law doesn't apply to them, they're thugs. Police officers who pull over black people for no reason, only because of the color of their skin, they're the ones who are thugs.